Welcome to the Harvard Shanghai Center, and welcome to the second half of China X. I'm Adam Mitchell, and today we're going to be talking about the origins of China's modern past. Until the mid-19th century, commerce between the Qing and Western Europe was coordinated under the umbrella of the Canton System, with foreign trade concentrated in the port of Guangzhou, also known to the west as Canton. Situated at the mouth of the Pearl River Delta, Guangzhou allowed for easy access to southern trade routes, where officially licensed Chinese merchants could engage in transactions with foreign entities like the East India Company. But with the rising British demand for Chinese tea and flow of silver specie into China to purchase it, British traders, with the help of Chinese merchants, began to address the imbalance by dealing in opium. Escalating tensions over the restrictions of the Canton System and the attempted suppression of the illegal opium trade eventually gave rise to conflict. In 1839, after the emperor sent a special imperial commissioner to Guangzhou to enforce the opium ban by detaining the British superintendent of trade in the Canton harbor and seizing 20,000 chests of opium, the British responded by blockading the Pearl River and attacking the Qing Navy. The 3-year war which ensued resulted in the sound defeat of the Qing and the signing of the Treaty of Nanjing in 1842. In the face of these external pressures, the Qing court had to simultaneously deal with rebellions from within. The Nian Rebellion in the south, the Muslim Panthay Rebellion in the southwest, the Dungan Rebellion in the north. But by far, the largest and most devastating internal conflict was a massive civil war, which resulted in the deaths of some 20 to 30 million Chinese, the Taiping Rebellion. While the Qing was waging war with Taiping rebels throughout the 1850s, Britain and France would launch another joint military campaign, capturing the southern cities of Guangzhou, Yantai, and Dalian before taking Beijing and burning the Summer Palace in 1860. The conflict would prove yet another defeat in a series of humiliations for the waning Qing, which, after being forced to sign the Treaty of Tianjin, was obligated to legalize the opium trade, allow missionaries to freely enter the Qing Empire, open Tianjin as a trade port, and pay further indemnities to the Western military powers. Facing an eroding agrarian tax base and a weakening military force, the Qing court, under the Empress Dowager Cixi, attempted a series of institutional reforms known as the self-strengthening movement. The central goal of self-strengthening was not to emulate the West, but rather to adopt Western military technology in order to combat barbarian threats and to preserve Chinese culture as well as Qing rule. Progressives and conservatives would battle over the nature and extent of these reforms, debating whether they should be limited to military modernization or aimed at a more comprehensive restructuring of the Qing's educational and political systems. But ultimately, their attempts would be in vain, as the Qing military would continue to prove ineffectual against the Western forces and would soon be outclassed by a rapidly industrializing Japan. In 1894, when a rebellion broke out in Korea, the Guangxu emperor sent 2,000 troops under the direction of General Yuan Shikai, a man who we'll meet many times again, to assist in the suppression of insurrectionists. Shortly thereafter, Japan sent its own expeditionary force of 8,000 to expel the Chinese soldiers, seize the Korean king, and install a pro-Japanese regime. This act would launch an 8-month conflict in which Meiji Japan would go on to invade Manchuria and sink the Beiyang fleet. In the aftermath of this short-lived war, the Qing was forced to recognize the independence of Korea in addition to ceding Taiwan and the Penghu Islands to Japan. The Qing's ignominious defeat at the hands of their little brother caused xenophobic sentiments to reach a new zenith. Anti-foreign, anti-Christian popular movements spread across the North China Plain, the largest of which was the Society of the Righteous and Harmonious Fists, or Boxers, as they were nicknamed in the West, for their prowess in martial arts and calisthenics. Initially, It was the stance of the Qing court to suppress such uprisings. But in 1900, Empress Dowager Cixi reversed her stance and threw imperial support behind the Boxers, declaring war on the eight-nation alliance of France, Britain, America, Russia, Germany, Italy, Austria, and Japan. Fearing for their lives, foreigners took shelter in their legations in Beijing and for 55 days held back both the Boxers and the imperial army. The siege was lifted only when a force of 20,000 Allied troops invaded the capital and routed the Qing soldiers. The dynasty managed to persist only another decade after the Boxer uprising and the sieging of the international legations. Thereafter, a boy emperor would assume the throne, and from inside the walls of the Forbidden City, he would preside over the last days of imperial China. The fall of empire would bring to a close a 2,000-year tradition of imperial rule. Without an emperor and without an administrative bureaucracy, who then would rule China? As we shall see, this is a question that would come to dominate the greater part of the 20th century.